inside!
The first movie we did together was 17 Again, and we were very conscious that 17 Again was an incremental step away from the High School Musicals, but still, I mean, it was a comedy.
One, Papa, take one! Mark!
It was always important to marry the right actor and the right filmmaker to this kind of material because it's challenging material. And for him, it's a bit of a turn. It's a much more mature role. It's a dramatic role.
Action! We're gonna catch him, Sammy!
Yeah! It's a huge role for ZAC, and I'm extremely excited for him.
Bear off when I say!
This is his passage into being a leading man.
You did it! You did it!
Initially, I was handed the script by Mark Platt. I thought the script was incredibly well written.
There are themes in it that were interesting to me.
Start marks, guys.
And then it was just one of those things when ZAC was interested in it, where things came together quickly.
Charles Percival St. Cloud, captain of the sailing team.
I immediately felt a connection with Charlie. He seemed like a very interesting character to play.
He's very funny. We had a really good working relationship, so he brought me into it.
By the end of 17, again, we were just kind of figuring each other out, and we were sort of learning our shorthand. 2 words means, 10 sentences.
Okay.
Burl will walk up to me after, a take where I really tried hard, and he'll just go, okay, and I know I need to do it differently.
We do have a shorthand. Knowing who he is, I would know what to say to get him to go where he needed to go.
We bring different, sometimes polar opposite views to this character that conflict, believe it or not, a lot.
It's like a conductor with a piece of music where you have a musician and you come in and you both have a different point of view about what that music is. He knows more about who the person is than I do. I have to ask him as it's coming through him what is real, what is honest, what would he be doing, and also try things, play with things.
It's fascinating what we can talk about and come up with.
Well, that was good.
That's really good. The key for me was to make the relationship seem real, especially the relationship with the younger brother. And they cultivated it as well. I mean, they worked at it.
What's up, Sid?
Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
You alright?
Yeah.
You gonna kill it?
Normal brother stuff, like playing catch, fight occasionally. Knowing you, did you suck any of this down? He doesn't like when I talk about him behind his back.
I have a younger brother, he's 17 now. But we were just like this, we gave each other crap.
Since you spit in him, it really makes it.
Charlie, I gotta be honest, he's proved to be the coolest younger brother ever. He's hilarious.
You know the real way to peel a banana? You don't peel it from this end. You pinch it, and it doesn't leave any of that stupid stuff.
I thought the relationship between Charlie and his brother Sam was incredibly real and honest. And it reminded me a lot of the way that I've talked to and been trying to mentor my younger brother since, I can remember.
We bonded a lot over the course of the movie. Yeah! Let's go!
Yeah!
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 It's our bat suits.
The best thing in the world is always to get the best players you can. And Ray Liotta's great. He was a mentor in the best possible ways because he brought it every scene.
The biggest reason, I guess, was my daughter. She's 10 years old and obviously a big ZAC fan.
Of course. I mean, that's always been the case. It's always been the way to get, to attract cast. I mean, they have kids.
Originally, I said, I don't think we have time. But when I mentioned it to my 14-year-old daughter, it was the funniest thing. She went nuts. She said, what? Not go to Vancouver and not play ZAC Efron's mom? She said, you're crazy. And we ended up doing the part.
That's your entree. Then your closure is having them meet ZAC because he's the real deal. The growth for ZAC to be thrown into a scene with him, incredibly intimidating. He faced it and holds his own and is made better by working with them.
I was really lucky with ZAC and with Charlie, the first scene that I was with him, and thank God, I'm a mom, So I just had to use some of those things that I used with my daughter. It's a difficult thing to do, so the audience trusts that you really have been with these kids, you know, and you really know them. But the people underneath the actor is what makes it, you know, come to fruition and really happen, and I just got lucky.
ZAC, he's been great, and I think he's doing a really nice job. I mean, I can see why he took this part. It's definitely a really great story. It's an emotional story, and I think he's doing a great job.
He's worked so very hard to develop this character and to understand the subtext of the character, the different levels on which it operates.
He had to inhabit this part. He had to put a lot of ZAC into this to expose himself in his emotions. He had to go to some really deep, painful places. It's great to have your lead actor on a movie be the hardest working person on the set.
He has such a long career ahead of him.
He has a huge career ahead of him.
I mean, he's got it. Whatever it is, he's got that unquantifiable thing that is so rare that you put him in front of a camera and he just holds it. You see the effect he has on people. I mean, he has that magical thing.
There's supernatural elements. Who knows? The whole thing could be in Charlie's head.
I always thought of him being able to see ghosts as being like one of those dot pictures, you know, that you look at, you stare at, your brain adjusts, and you see beyond. He's seeing beyond the dots. He's seeing things that maybe always were there, but now he can see them. Or he's cracked, and it's all a delusion, and that's sort of that's the balance we play throughout the movie.
If you want it to be a ghost story, it is a ghost story. And if you believe ghosts are real, they are real in this film. If you think it's more imagined, you can interpret it that way. But it's definitely spiritual.
I interviewed a number of people who are very highly regarded psychics and mediums, and spirit guides. I was very interested in what they see and the framework that they have for how the sort of communication happens.
You know, anybody can talk to the dead. Hearing the dead back is a whole different story.
Not everybody can do it. I think it's genetic. I know that anybody can talk to the other side and they can hear you. It's who could hear the message back.
When it comes to the question of life after death, I'm for it. But I don't believe that there's a shred of evidence that anyone survives their physical body.
Charlie St. Cloud explores a couple different things about ghosts, and it really looks at three things. The death and resuscitation of Charlie, leading to psychic experiences, which does happen to people. The ghost of the person who's died and stuck around afterwards. And then that crisis apparition of Tess, which to me is a really cool thing. It rarely happens in films, but it's a really important piece because it happens. It does happen.
One of the exciting things for a writer is to figure out the rules in a story that involves spirits and ghosts, and you're just making it up. Who knows how this works? And so it has to be pretty consistent.
The ghosts aren't really portrayed as they are typically in other movies. They're real people, kind of manifestations of exactly how the people used to be.
So my rules were that Charlie could see Sam because Charlie had been to that side and been pulled back. That was the idea. He's gone across, come back, and he keeps that power, and he makes that promise. And as long as he keeps that promise, he retains the power and the ability to see his brother.
I feel like in most movies, ghosts are haunting, or they don't even necessarily know they're ghosts. Here, they kind of have a different level of awareness, and Charlie's the only real person they can talk to.
Charlie can see other people also who are in that process of going over to the other side. And I came up with this idea of the in-between. So you're not gone, you're not here, you're in the middle, and during that period in the middle, Charlie can see you in transition. And that explains how Charlie can see other people who have just died, who are on their way to the other side.
The very idea in the film that Charlie could see Sully, could have another ghostly experience, it's not that out of line because of his resuscitation, possible near-death experience that he had. When the car hits Charlie's car, and Sam gets killed. Charlie is flatlined.
Charlie was brought back because he was pushed back by the other side. That's usually how we come back, is because it's not our time and they push us back.
People who have these kind of resuscitation experiences, a certain percentage, a small percentage of them have enhanced psychic abilities when they come back. Some are healers, some perceive the dead, some have other psychic abilities, it seems.
I love it when people say, well, I communicate with my grandmother and my husband, but I'm not a medium. It's like, well, what would you call you? That's my definition of a medium. Even if you do it once, you have mediumistic abilities.
The issue for us in parapsychology seems to be that while everyone has some degree of psychic ability, like everyone has some degree of musical talent, some degree of artistic ability, whether you take advantage of it, whether you notice what that is and bring it out, may be dependent on your upbringing, your cultural background, a number of other things.
So, yeah, Charlie's a medium, and I guess lucky to be so, or Tess wouldn't be alive.
Charlie sees Tess, who's almost there and almost gone, and the question is, can he get her back like Florio did with him before it's too late?
In the situation with Tess, we have a whole category of apparitions called crisis apparitions. This is one of the categories that was determined by the Society for Psychical Research back in the 1880s, and it's continued. And that category is when someone is alive and in crisis, sometimes they project, or somehow they're putting out that signal, and a mother, a father, a loved one sees them, can even touch them, and is told that they're in danger.
I believe that the brain's incredibly powerful and can do virtually anything, and whether that's real or I'm not sure if it matters.
There's an interesting phenomenon sometimes called the third man factor. I call it the sense presence, that appears to happen under a lot of different conditions. Solo sailors have a sense that there's somebody in the boat with them. Solo flyers like Lindbergh, a sense there was somebody in the cockpit with him all across the Spirit of St. Louis flight. It's a brain phenomenon, somehow related to maybe cold, deprivation of some kind, hunger, loneliness, extreme environments of any kind, for some reason trigger the brain to produce a second sense of self. But the brain can only have one self. So that second self is out there. The brain's very powerful that way.
There's a great thing on burn victims coming back from the war where they put them in a room and have visuals of frozen tundra of the Arctic, so their brains would think they were in a cold place and their bodies would cool down physically.
To chalk everything up to it's just your brain playing tricks on you, I think everybody that watches this movie will understand they've had a moment where something resonated with them from somebody who died, or they heard something or felt something or saw a flash of light out of the corner of your eye, and you turn and look and there's nothing there, and you can feel who was there, that there was somebody there.
Really what people want is the idea of comfort, like there's somebody out there, up there, who's watching over me.
All I can say to the skeptics is there's no blanket scientific explanation for these. In the past 10 years or so, there have been multiple explanations coming out for certain types of ghostly experiences.
Keep an open mind and an open heart, and keep your eyes open as you go through life.
If we can show that there really is evidence for some existence after death, death is really not an end point, it is a transition point.
When I wrote the book, one of the core ideas is this notion, and I can't prove it, but I believe it, that sometimes when we hold on to people who are gone, it hurts us and it hurts them too.
Part of you dies when you lose somebody that you love, and often they stay to almost resuscitate that part of you and to say, you know what, it's okay, I'm okay, and you rejoin the living now.
You're not abandoning them. You have to get on with your life, you have to live, and that you're not doing them any service by not living. Life is precious, and you take advantage of every second you've got.
We all have to go where we belong.
What's in the book and what's in the movie, I think, is sort of imagination. It's a version of what might be. Who knows if it's true? It makes me feel better to think that maybe this is how it works.
We'll always be brothers.
all of us are yearning for connections in our life. Connections to people who are living, connection to those who are no longer among us. And that desire, that yearning, that need for connectiveness is part of the fabric of the world we live in.
Maybe when people pass away, briefly, there's a moment in between before they cross on to what comes next, that they're around us. In the wind, in a feather that falls in our lap, in a leaf, in a butterfly, in the sun, that there is something of them still here, always around us.
We started production on the Charlie St. Cloud, and it's pretty much a dream scenario so far. Out on the water sailing every day in beautiful Vancouver.
Well, we are at Eagle Harbor.
We're filming the opening scene where we win the big boat race.
I've always admired sailing, sort of for the beauty of it, but you never actually think in terms of what it would require to control something like that.
I kind of thought you just got in the boat and the wind pushed the sails and you went. How hard could it be? I was so wrong. It is an intense sport. There's so much to do, a million things you have to think about.
Sailing was actually really hard. A lot of things to focus on.
One mistake, one lapse in judgment, you can flip a boat, you can capsize. It can become very dangerous very quickly. So on the first day of sailing lessons, my instructor made a point to just capsize the boat a bunch of times, be like, don't be afraid. I was terrified, But I got that out of my system way before we started filming.
Between Los Angeles and here, he had about 3 weeks of intense sailing training.
It was so important for ZAC to be able to really sail the boat. Sailing's the big metaphor of the movie. I mean, sailing has meant everything to Charlie. That's when he's most alive.
I'm learning a lot. I pretty much know how to sail now.
He's a student, he's fiercely competitive, so if there's any kind of action to be undertaken in the film, he rehearses and practices and trains, so he does it all himself.
He is such a strong sailor that we don't need sailing doubles to do his wide shots.
Interesting fact about me, I hate the water. I threw up 5 times, but that was better than yesterday, because yesterday I threw up 10 times. I know when I auditioned for the movie Bird, like, have you ever been sailing? I'm like, no. He's like, what do you think about it? I'm like, I love the water.
The thing about her is she's an actress, so she sees somebody else doing it, sees exactly what the action is, and she does it. She was fearless. She was really game for anything.
No!
It was the last day of sailing.
We were trying to figure out a way to punctuate that victory.
Burr's like, well, what would you do, like flip off the boat? And I was all, yeah, I would flip off the boat.
You guys see that?
It was pretty awesome.
I swooned.
French judge gave it a 6.
Yeah, I can't believe it, but he got in full rotation. It's almost like he levitated in the air for a second. That was no stunt double.
Charles Percival St. Cloud, captain of the sailing team and winner of the Keating Scholar Athlete Award.
Charlie! Expect some big things from you, young man.
Expecting big things from myself, sir. Having Kim Basinger play my mom, so amazing. I'll never forget the day she first showed up on set. She's absolutely beautiful. She was so sweet and caring. She's like the coolest mom ever.
Zac's an eclectic kind of guy, and he's very, very smart. And I felt an instant bond with him when I met him.
There's so much love in her performance.
She's amazing in every scene. She's so visceral.
You can't put life on hold, Charlie. It doesn't wait for you.
And she was incredibly generous and emotionally available in all those scenes.
Take 1. Smart.
The scene today is in the graveyard. This graveyard is Charlie's home. It's where he talks with Sam. Today's the day, Sam.
What? I become a man?
No. Today's the day you learn how to throw a slider. He takes very good care of it. It's his life. He doesn't really leave, which is crazy because we've got a whole camera crew here. So it's fun being in a graveyard. I could be here all day. It's fun. We have a lot of laughs here. It's when everybody's gone that it becomes a scary place. I fell asleep in the gator thing over there and woke up, and the whole crew had moved. And suddenly I was very, very alone in a graveyard, and it was not a fun feeling. The cart, that's how Charlie gets around. Those are stunt geese. They were trained to get out of the way.
Charlie's decided to wage war on these geese.
You ready?
Hasta la vista, you waterfowl!
Shooting that scene was hilarious.
Here they come. Foolish geese.
Poop. Incoming. Retreat. Okay.
Wait till it starts coming at you.
We had a goose poop projectile machine that was like air powered. So it made these funny sounds and shot out sort of a mayonnaise-like substance all over the ground. Coolest invention ever. Goose poop machine. We're gonna patent it, copyright it. They should be in stores this Christmas.
Water was so cold.
That was a horrible leg. It was a horrible, freezing, miserable leg.
The mud goes up to here. You can't run 2 steps in that.
And I did several takes.
You want to run around Seaside with the rifle, Alistair?
What about high-power crossbow?
When we started the shoot, we were mentally and physically prepared for everything, except Augustus Prew. He came onto the show and turned everything upside down. But in a good way.
Augustus is a riot.
I had initially written the part for an older Russian immigrant, and Augustus put himself on tape in London. It really created this character.
45 Charlie takes floor, be only mark. Welcome to my boat. Charlie, that was not easy!
I read the script and obviously fell in love with the story and the character and everything, and then I met Burr and I totally wasn't expecting it to go further than that.
She came in and just took over the room.
It was actually on my birthday I got the call that I was going to be reading with ZAC, and I was like, oh my god!
Working with Amanda's been great. She's really along for this adventure.
My life sucks right now. Making out with ZAC is disgusting. This one fan walks up to me and she's like, so, you're like Zach's girlfriend in the movie? I was like, yeah, I guess, like, his girlfriend type. So you, like, get to kiss him? Yeah, I get to kiss him a few times. I just hope you know you're not the only girl that gets to kiss him. He kisses lots of girls. It's like, okay, sorry. My bad.
She's a really unique actress. She brought a lot of wryness and humor that wasn't on the page. It was cute.
Cute's not what we're going for, Burr.
Yeah.
I just got to talk to my 10-year-old daughter. Hey, how you doing?
Initially, a bit intimidated by Ray Liotta, definitely. Hey, you know what's kind of cool? I made it through a scene today with your dad, and he didn't punch me. Yeah, yet anyway. He's got a strong presence.
You get blood on my phone.
He just loved making fun of me, constantly.
You ever see anybody walk around like that?
I was working with Ray, and I was watching playback, which is helpful when you have an entrance or an exit or something physical to do. And Ray said, why are you looking at playback? And I said, oh, to, see the choreography and see what looks good and what doesn't. And he goes, choreography for what? You only need that for like a fight scene. And immediately I start thinking about High School Musical and all the dancing. And I'm like, oh man, he's from a totally different background than I'm from at all. He had no idea what I was talking about. He only watches playbacks when he's kicking people's ass. I try and incorporate as much as I can of my real life badass self into movies. So I said that I think there's gotta be a scene where I deck a guy in a bar, because it happens every Saturday.
Zach can throw a punch.
Every day, all these girls come to look at me. They line up for me everywhere I go. Hi! Look, no one even waved their hand.
You have to understand ZAC EFRON. I mean, my God, You know, just with everything he's got going and 20 billion teenage girls wherever he goes.
He has that sort of magical gleam. He's like the Beatles to kids of a certain age. They just go crazy. He's just so appreciative. I mean, he gets it, because he hit the pavement in LA going on auditions and getting small parts and things, so he got his break. He really appreciated it.
Do you even know who that was?
Tráilers. Visita mi canal.
This is a massive underwater tank. It takes up pretty much the whole stage, and this is where we're going to film Tess's rescue. Charlie saves Tess.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
First time I've ever filmed underwater, and it's just a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect you have to deal with. There's a system they have. I don't know how it works. I think it's how we communicate with whales. But you can actually hear voices underwater. It's frightening. I hear enough of Lisa's voice outside the water. I don't really need to be hearing it while I'm swimming.
And door.
He came up when we were in pre-production, and they were going to start getting him ready to do underwater work. And they told us the first time they brought him in there that they'd never seen anybody who was so good at it.
I can hold my breath for a really long time. I've always kind of prided myself on I'll win the breath holding contest.
And the joke was always to prod him, actually, Tom Cruise can hold his breath for a minute and 5 seconds. And of course, ZAC would be, practicing in his bathtub all night. There's a scene where he gets hooked up on the boat and he can't escape, and he's got to let all the air go from his body. You see all the bubbles go and just sort of float there. And 3 times we sent divers in to get him, and of course he was fine. He was just doing the scene, no panic whatsoever. He loves that challenge, and he loves putting himself in that kind of a pressure situation. That's where he thrives.
Everything we've done, we know he's going to be good at it. Just how good is he? And he's always really good. Sometimes I've looked at the stunt double and said, you're kind of out of a job here.
There's very little he can't do.
The coolest part of the movie for me has really been connecting with the character on a whole different level. That was incredibly exciting.
He's really serious about it, and I think he's doing a really nice job.
He's younger than the character that I imagined in the book, but he also does something to this character that I think is really important on the screen. There's something about watching him, even in a cemetery, where you still feel there's hope.
Expecting to meet ZAC EFRON, I was expecting him to be an absolute nightmare, Mr. Drama Queen.
Yeah, put it right over there, guys.
Not joking. No, of course, it's a pleasure to work with.
ZAC is amazing. He's the king.
He can do anything. The sky's the limit.